Before we begin, thank you very much to Sunstorm9119 for upgrading your Patreon pledge. Thank you very much for helping out a little bit more. It's always appreciated. Thank you so much for helping me keep this going for everybody. It's Q&A time again, and as you can see by the very poor lighting setup here, I still have not gotten everything figured out in the new arrangement. But there's no way that I'm not going to actually be on camera for the Q&A, so rigged up what we could for now, expect something else down the line. Hopefully this is all looking a lot more presentable next time. And hopefully I'm not in this really dim, weirdly directional light. Point being, it's time to answer a lot of comments and questions from you guys, because guess what? You asked a lot. It's something like 200 and almost 250. This is going to be a long one. Thank you for your patience waiting for your question to come up. If you would like to leave me a question for the next Q&A, which will be on June 1st, then by all means leave it in the comments below. If it's a question, that's fine, but please keep it short. We want quick, punchy answers. Only make one question per person, so that way everyone gets a chance to be included, and we can get through it as fast as possible. If you're going to leave a comment, please just make it mark it as a comment. That way we can get through it as fast as possible again. There's a few topics to avoid. Gun Megatron, we've talked about too much. Gundams, I know next to nothing about the franchise. We're going to add a new one, which is your fan idea or story or fan art is valid. You do not need my approval. And that is because I have had this thing lately where people will post like screen long descriptions of like fanfics they're going to write just because they want my opinion. Please don't do that. That's not short punchy. Okay. I'm going to stick to short and punchy for very strictly, especially if we're going to have 250 comments to go through, just so we're not here forever. Okay. So you don't need my approval. It's if you're going to enjoy doing it, go do it. Okay, so let us get started. The first question being, well, since we start with the newest ones, do you think the build rule would have been at least a little bit better if trans skeletons had more articulation? They would have been better if you did anything differently. There's the bar for build the rule is so low to the ground at this point, you could not ask an ant to crawl underneath it. You can't, yeah, like, yes, they would be better if the trans skeletons had more articulation, but frankly, between proportion, style, accuracy, and just like how poor of a substitution for Lego it was, articulation was the least of its problems. Do you like when Transformers have romantic relationships with humans or similar alien species? It's a little weird. Like Powerglide being in love with a human, Sea Spray being in love with an alien just feels odd because it is technically interspecies. But then again, I liked Goliath and Elisa from Gargoyles. I liked them. And if Marissa called Thundercracker her boyfriend, I wouldn't be against it. So maybe it's a situational thing. I don't know. What do you think about past non-HasLab Transformer crowdfunding projects, particularly ones that failed to reach its goals, like the Eagle Moss chess set or the Legends Takara Grand Maximus retool that didn't get its Pretender shell? The non-HasLabs. So it depends on them. It depends on which ones they are. Like the Grand Maximus, they really should have just been complete. It should have been just, hey, if we reach this goal, you're going to get everything, instead of just leaving it as like an incomplete version of the old toy. I don't like that. But as far as like things like the Eagle Moss chess set, like that was kind of doomed from the start because it's not really a collectible. It's going to appeal to Transformer fans. And we did a whole video about it when it ended. I felt it was handled very badly. I think from a conceptual standpoint, that one was not presented very well. So, but that's just me. Do you own any DC Multiverse figures, or are there any characters you'd want to receive one? I only own one, and it's Batman Beyond. and I still do not like it. I don't like DC Multiverse because they're an inch taller than every other action figure line I collect. You know, you'd think the most obvious thing would be to make them 6-inch scales so they scale with Marvel Legends so you can have all your superheroes together. No. Todd McFarlane has to be special. Todd McFarlane has to be contrarian, so he does everything 7-inch. And then he makes the line 70% Batman. It's like when Transformers, like when other, like Marvel Legends, Transformers, any other toy line will do like one heavy hitter in a wave, a couple of B-list characters, and then 1 or 2 C or D list. You know, and they space it out like that. DC Multiverse is one big hitter per wave, maybe one offbeat character, and the rest are Batman. And the A-list character is also probably Batman. I think that toy line had a ton of issues. A ton. The sculpting on Superman being very, very high on that list. Maybe it's a good thing he stuck to Batman. But no, I think that line has an enormous amount of problems. So I'm kind of glad Mattel's going to take a stab at it again. I just want a Batman Beyond and a Spider-Man 2099 that are in the same scale. That's all I want. Considering the success of the Lego Transformers line, how possible is it for Takara Tomy to make a Transformers model kit line complete with full transformation kits without parts forming? What you're describing is an unassembled Transformer. That's basically what it comes down to. At that point, it's not a model kit. At that point, you're just doing what the factory in China was supposed to do, and because it's a model kit, you're probably paying more than you would if it was pre-assembled. Here's the truth. The transformation process of a Transformer requires assembly and material you're never going to see in a model kit. It takes special plastics that are more friction-proof but harder to work with. It takes pins and rivets that you're not necessarily going to be able to fire in yourself from home. Things that have to be done during the actual production process while the plastic is still warm and malleable in order to get like the pins to actually stick in with those little teeth they have on one end. But yeah, that's not what the model kits are for. A model kit should be reserved for the things that like high articulation, you know, good to put in one pose and leave it as a display piece. And it should be devoid of, you know, having to transform. That way it can be more screen accurate. That way it can look and have a different aesthetic to it. You know, really, if you want a model kit to transform, you're just asking for an unassembled Transformer. That's basically what it boils down to. And they are literally never going to do that. And like I said, there's a lot of like physical reasons why they're not going to do it. What collaborative do you think could use a weaponizer style mold? I think either franchise also focus on modularity, Micronauts, Zevos, Jason the Wheel Warriors, Centurions, or with a fitting aesthetic, a fossilizer for Skeleton Warriors, Junkion from Mad Max. I would say like Skeleton Warriors, it's not going to happen, but that would be hilarious. I really liked Jason the Wheeled Warriors. If they put if they did like actual transforming toys of some of those designs, and then worked in some weaponizer stuff, that would be fantastic. That would be a lot of fun. I almost feel like your best bet is to try and find some franchise with a heavy focus on the weaponry of the characters, and see if you can't make a Transformer toy out of that. Offhand, I don't know of any that I can immediately think of. No, like somewhere in my head, it's like, well, they could do American Gladiators, and and it all breaks down into like, like the like the pugil sticks they used to use, or like all the weapons from the assault course, all the weapon setups for the assault course. It had to be something crazy to work a weaponizer gimmick in. It's definitely possible. I just can't think of any offhand. Do you think gimmick figures are the toy equivalent of TikTok, YouTube brain rot? Not necessarily. I mean, for a lot of people, like a one-step changer or something like on the desk Makes for a good like fidget toy, makes for like a good ADHD toy for a Transformer collector. Just something to keep your hands busy when you feel like you need it. I wouldn't call it brain rot. I don't think that applies here because like I'm not, like you're not like scrolling through like endless amounts of one-step changers. I don't have a box of 30 of them that I mess with, flip through once, move, flip through once. I don't know. This just seems like you're using the brain rot in like almost a negative context. So I don't think that's I think that's a false equivalent. I don't think that's a fair comparison, honestly. It's just a matter of like collectors. Your store stocks nothing but gimmick toys. I've been neglecting the other lines for a while. Yeah, like I don't know what to tell you. I genuinely don't. It's weird. It's weird because like for whatever reason they really. Here's what it is. A lot of the retailers, they know nothing of Transformers, so all they know is it's a toy line. Get the stuff that's made for kids, not the stuff that's made for collectors, and that's what they buy. That's why they overstock it. We all know the Micromasters, but how would you define the Macromasters? Aren't those the City Formers? Isn't that what that is? I would assume Macromasters, if you're going to go off of the Micromaster thing, would probably be like Transformers with standard vehicle modes, but as large as possible. So like a Fortress Maximus size robot, but he just turns into a Camaro or something. It'd be funny. It'd be funny, but it's absurd. When it comes to food aesthetic, what would you say Gov gets wrong that the food droids, McChangeables, assorted bots got right? Does this extend to other food-themed stuff like Mattel's Food Fighters, Fighting Foodons, and various food-themed Pokemon we have now? My problem with Gov is I cannot take food seriously as a power source for a superhero. I cannot take, like the thing with like food droids, McChangeables, and all that. They're goofy, they're gimmicky, but they're not like the everything, they know it's weird and they're playing with it, and so is Gov, but Gov is trying to also take it seriously, and that's where I'm lost. That's where it loses me. It's not a superhero thing. It's like telling me that like Superman gets his powers, by eating graham crackers. No. Yeah, I can't take it, like, when it's a gimmicky, goofy little thing and it's being honest about being gimmicky, goofy, and not serious in any way, okay, fine. It's just a little side thing. It's just a little, like, novelty thing. Gov is trying to not make it a novelty. It's trying to make it the main star, and it's trying to take it seriously. That's where it loses me. What are some other story rework ideas that you've had aside from Super Megaforce and Beast Machines? So I've been tossing around an idea for Energon, and someone has a Patreon request for me to do Energon. That's going to be very difficult because Energon doesn't have a whole lot to work with, which is why the series ran out of juice like halfway through. Like the writers just completely ran out of plot and just had to literally float for a long time. So that's going to take a while to figure out and reformulate. When it comes to the rest, other ones I've had, the one I've been tossing around in my head for a long time is Kamen Rider Decade. I would love to do a rewrite of Decade, and in my brain it's close, but I'm hitting the same problem that a lot of the writers for Decade hit. I don't know what to do with Yusuke. He's just kind of there. So, like, Tsukasa doesn't have to talk to himself for certain scenes. So I need to figure that part out. And that part of that Decade thing is I'm trying to recreate what I think is the original intention of the series. Like, as much as I can glean from, like, what the original writer put into that show. So that one's been problematic. Honestly, I've put that idea down for, like, the last year, so it might be time for me to, like, look at what I had and maybe reevaluate. Do you think that Dinobots from the Renegade Games Studio role-playing game will give Hasbro a reason to bring toys for them? They made a new model for Paddles and Scar and added 5 new Dinobots. Honestly, no. Honestly, no. That would be way too obscure. I mean, you're talking about I barely know the role-playing game. I didn't know it created more Dinobots. I'm sure more Dinobots would sell, but they are characters that practically nobody in the fandom would actually know. Because as far as I know, that role-playing game did not take off. As far as I know, that game did not take off. I don't expect to ever see anything from those games produced physically, as cool as it might be. Thoughts on the possibility of a crossover that goes both ways? An example is with Bandai, where Hasbro does a transforming mobile suit, and Bandai does, most likely not transforming, Transformer model kit. The closest I've seen this done outside of Hasbro IPs are comics. So you will remember that Hasbro and Bandai, Hasbro or Bandai and Takara are getting away with this. The TJOmega toy line, the little car toy line in Japan, got to do White Base from Gundam. In exchange, I can't remember what band I got to do. Oh yeah. They got to do like a Solo Chogokin Liger Zero, which I don't think is a fair exchange, but it was an exchange of IP. Honestly, like I feel like the most obvious place to do that right now would be Power Rangers. Something that Hasbro and Bandai could both do on both sides, or let's do a Megazord that's flavored more like a traditional Transformer combiner. Maybe the Dinozords have individual robot modes. And then like you could do like a traditional combiner, maybe like Constructicons or something, in a very Bandai style, the way they would design a Megazord. Things like that. That I think would be the most likely, because there's already some semblance of a cooperation there for that franchise in particular. But that is a tricky thing to do. What MP scale Transformer should I buy? Official or third party? Find the one that looks good and buy it. That's my thing. The only thing is, if you have not, it sounds like you might not have even bought official or third party Masterpiece scale toys before. Third party can be incredibly complex. So if you, so you could end up buying a third party one and just be completely put off by how difficult it is to transform, or how hard it is to remember the transformation sequence. I would probably suggest MP, and keep it to one of the smaller ones if it's your first time. Beyond that, yeah, just do your research. Find one that looks good. Do your research. If you like how it looks, go for it. If Magnetar was a Transformer, what would he turn into? So I feel like Mag has to be one of the one of the protoforms, like the actual like meteors from the 07 preview line. Like, it has to be like the Optimus Prime. It's like yeah, the meteor thing is just too obvious. If I'm gonna give him like a because like an actual vehicle mode would probably be something along the lines of just like a spaceship or like a starfighter style vehicle. Something that's space hero appropriate. We'll phrase it that way. Would you do a toy line where all the Transformers had Dome Racers as their alt modes? I go to Dome Racers too often when I come up with new vehicle modes, don't I? It's just I like the vehicle. I like the look of it. There's no Transformer that's kind of claimed it as their own thing, so it's easy for me to use. In a 1v1v1 fight, who would win? Agent Fowler, Agent Simmons, or Agent Schloeder? Not Simmons. Absolutely not Simmons. It comes down to Fowler or Schloeder. I'd probably give it to Fowler. Like, Fowler's like feels like low key the one that would just pop off if given the chance. Yeah, and I do appreciate the compliment, bot shots. Thank you. I hope I'm still doing a good job. I'm trying. Turns out, adding a full streaming schedule to a daily content schedule for someone who works at a toy shop 4 days a week as it is, it gets a little tricky. The balancing act is tricky. What are your thoughts on the RoboForce animated series? Have you seen it or not? As far as I know, there wasn't a series. As far as I know, it was just like a 1-episode thing that never made it to series. I've only seen bits and pieces. Honestly, not enough to judge it. So I don't really have. I unfortunately can't really say anything to that one. Have I seen number 1 Sentai Go Zyuger yet? And do I like it so far? I've only seen a little bit. This falls into the realm of I don't have time to really watch anything, much less something like a subtitled series where I just don't, I don't have to. If I'm watching something, it's usually in a background or these days on a second monitor. And I it's something that I can passively take in. I'm not, I can't really pay, nothing like I don't have time to pay attention to something with subtitles. See, was working at a toy store / any other toy related work always something you wanted to do as an adult? I think any toy collector has wanted to work at a collector's toy shop because that just seems like the dream job. In a lot of ways it is. It was never like a goal. I've talked about how I ended up with that job. Like I literally got drafted into it. Like this literally like your ideal job isn't going to just come like walking up to the door. Like, well, it kind of did. Kinda did. Which Autobot medic is better in your opinion, Ratchet or Red Alert? We're talking like G1 Red Alert. I assume we have to be talking about Armada Red Alert because G1 Red Alert is not a medic. He is anxiety given form as a robot. But honestly, like, it doesn't really matter the fiction. I generally think, unless someone is intentionally written to be, like, Ratchet's superior for storyline plot reasons, Ratchet is almost always the best medic in Transformers. He just is. He's too experienced and just too good at what he does. See, what are your thoughts on how Tobot and Metal Cardbot handle their combiners, releasing as both normal, non-combining figures, as well as different combiner sets that feature simplified individual figures? Do I think this approach would work for Transformers? I don't know about, like, I don't know about this because you're gonna double up on so many characters. It would give individual combiner characters a chance to shine, but I think you're just gonna invite a lot of fans to complain about why the really good ones don't combine. Why do we have to get these like kiddified, simplistic ones to actually do the combining thing? I think you're just going to invite the headache because Hasbro or Takara have never done that for Transformers before. I think the only like the closest I could even reference to that would be like RID 2015 when they did like the Autobot combiner there. So there's precedent for it. No one really raised havoc over it, but you'd have to simplify them down to the point where they just feel like a gimmicky toy rather than like a fully fledged Transformer or figure the way that Cardbot attempts to do it, or Tobot, depending on which one. Question: Stacks as a Stunticon. You mean the GoBot? No, unless there's a different Stax I'm not thinking of here. Stax is a GoBot and he's a Guardian. He's not a bad guy. He's not a villain, so he's not gonna be like a substitute Stunticon. Also, I don't think you're gonna have a secondary truck, because especially in Transformers, truck designates leader. Semi-truck designates leader a lot of times. That was the whole point. That's kind of the idea behind Motormaster character-wise. It's like he's like this weird, like, Optimus comparison thing. No, I don't see that working, unfortunately. Okay, see, this is the kind of reason why I say, like, cutting out, like, fanficky ideas. If Cosmos had an evil counterpart, his name would be Decepticon Solar Haze. His ability would be polluting the sky with his solar panels, absorbing light from the sun, blocking the Autobots from radar, and his other ability would be shooting out solar heat. This is marked as a question. There's no question there. If you're asking my opinion about it, there's my fan creation rule from now on. Your idea is valid as long as you're having fun with it. You don't need my approval. Also, if you're not going to ask a question, do not mark it as a question. You know, this is a comment. Please mark the comments. In your new Almost video, why didn't you make Cup turn into a cup? You're funny. You're funny. Like Titan Hero Sentinel was made to play with Marvel Legends and other smaller lines instead of its own. Which Transformer army builder could do well with a 25-35 centimeters tall, cheap, non-transforming figure to play with Generations, Masterpiece, or another scale? Titan Hero Sentinel. I mean, I'm assuming that's a Marvel. I'm assuming you mean a Marvel Legend, like a Marvel style Sentinel, not like a Sentinel Prime that I'm not aware of. The only one I could think of offhand would probably be like the Guardian robot, but that's a very obscure pulp. That's the only large-scale character like that, and I don't even know how you'd get him to transform into something that resembles like a spaceship or a launch base of some kind. You would have to scale it down. You would have to scale it down a lot, and like. It works for Sentinels because Sentinels are naturally have this like round, smooth aesthetic. You can make a Titan Hero scale figure of that, and it kind of blends in and it kind of works. I think with most Transformer stuff, it's going to stick out. I feel like it's difficult. The only other one I could say was maybe Lugnut Supremes. There's your rounded aesthetic. That might work. We need a lot more animated figures for that, though. With the recent rumors, leaks of an animated Ratchet coming down the pipeline, who's your pick for the next animated character to get a new figure? Excluding Lugnut because everyone wants Lugnut. Personally, I'm hoping for animated Megatron. I want Lockdown, because have you seen the aftermarket for animated Lockdown? That is nuts. Also, that toy has a magical engineering thing that I'm surprised no other Transformer has attempted to mirror. So I would love to see it again. Okay, this is weird. Jesus David Carrillo, Sandmar, Jesus David Carrillo Sandmar, with just different words. No, I'm not I can't remove it because then it screws up the scrolling. That's the same name. You're trying to break the rules. I'm going to tell you this right now. You keep this up, I'm just going to block all of your alt accounts. Don't do this. If you had a Monoseed, what would your privilege magic be? I don't know what you're referring to. I honestly do not know what you're referring to. Yeah, unfortunately, this is a reference going above my head. I apologize for that. How old is Spike? Considering his girlfriend was taking like high-level college courses, my guess is for Spike has always been somewhere between 19 and then like no older than like maybe like 23, 24 maybe. Like they try to like pattern him as some kind of teenager or kid in the show, even though he's working an oil rig and dating a college girl. It's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell. TF2 is released. Who would you like to see as a main pro or antagonist in the film, except, besides the Quintessons? You take out the Quintessons and you're leaving me with nothing here, man. Like, the Quintessons are absolutely the villain if you make of Transformers 2. I'm trying to think if there's another, like, because the way that universe is set up, there really can't be anybody else, Like, I mean, it's a really, that's a really difficult question. Because you're telling me to exclude the obvious villain that's absolutely going to be. And beyond that, literally the only thing I can tell you is Optimus and Megatron should be the protagonist and antagonist. Simple as that. I don't think you're gonna, like, I don't think you replace either of them, because you either need the Quintessons to come get revenge for, everything that they pulled to escape their grip, or you have Megatron actually step up and try to take over the planet. One or the other. Okay, there is an edit function on YouTube, just so I don't accidentally overlook your question. Like, if you're gonna, like, don't separate your comments and your questions like this. Just make it one post per person, just so I don't accidentally delete anybody. What are some places you'd like to travel to as part of your toy collecting hobby? The only one that really shoots out at me is Japan. Like, I know there's other places that have, like, really cool, like toy centric, like subcultures, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Like South Korea's got a ton of incredibly really cool toys, but yeah, the mecca for me is always Japan. I have always wanted to visit, always will want to visit Japan, and I will absolutely, if I have to ever go someday, I'm taking a day just to explore all the biggest toy shops around Tokyo, specifically Akihabara, which I know is tourist trappy these days. I don't care. I want to go to Akihabara. When they get around to doing new minicons, should Armada, Ramjet, and Cybertron Drillbit be the same size as the rest, or should they be a little bigger, since the new tidal wave Metrobooks are much larger than their original figures? I think you take away something if you don't have the minicons the same size as each other, because very, very few minicons are different than the standard size. Like, literally, I can think of 4 offhand. Yeah, I'd rather even like in fiction, minicons are almost always the same size, even in canon universe. So I don't think you upscale those just because their partners are huge. Rather than be like normal size. If Rodimus from the 90s Slayers anime was a Transformer, what alt mode would he have? Not including Rodimus Prime's vehicle modes. So yeah, for those who need context here, my favorite anime of all time is Slayers. It is a 90s sword and sorcery anime, starring a very, very cool main character with a really fun main cast. A lot of fun in that series. Yeah, there is a side character in season 1 named Rodimus. And he's just kind of this, like, oldish knight character, and like you're not really gonna have much in the way of like what he could turn into. Like, he might be like some old hound or wolf. I feel like that's the range for that Rodimus. Do you spell it Griffin, or Griffin? I usually just spell it Griffin. This seems like the obvious one to me. First, to answer your question, no, I'm kidding. I usually spell it the first one with the 2 I's. That's always the one that made sense in my head. First to answer your question, I got the Masterpiece Diaclone Burnout. It was the best deal. Cool. Glad you've enjoyed it. How can a combiner not take damage when combined, but separated they can? I don't think it's that the combiner doesn't take damage, but for whatever reason, and they never really storyline explain this, they're just more powerful when they're all together, which chalk it up to like energy levels, combined force fields, whatever. For whatever reason, combiners just seem like they are more tanky when combined. No story logic to it. I always assume that like there's like a force field element to it, that when all of them combined is a lot stronger than normal. Which kind of explain why like they can take so much damage in alt modes, even though they're being repaired with like earth materials. They're still tanky, even though they're made of soft like steel and stuff. Steel being soft only in comparison to them, I should point out. See, I'm a big fan. Well, small, I'm 5'2". After watching your channel for many years, all the 17, do you have to age me, man? Do you have to age me, man? When do I sleep? I can understand with how busy my schedule is and how much content I put out. I can understand what you might say there. I will admit I'm not very good at getting to sleep on time. I'm a natural night owl. You know, it's 2 in the morning as I record this, but that's mostly so I can make sure it's, you know, nice and quiet and nothing's going to interrupt me. But I will admit, on work days at the shop, I usually don't get 8 hours. I try to get as close as I can, but yeah, usually it's just the days off. You know, it's why Magnetar does not stream until 3 p.m. So like I can sleep in nice and long, you know, on the days where I am capable of it. But yeah, I get that. I get that. I will fully admit my sleeping habits are not great. Do you prefer Cosmos to be bigger or smaller than average? I don't mind the Earthspark version of Cosmos where he's gigantic, because it kind of works for the story. It makes him stand out for obvious reasons. But for me, I kind of prefer the small, cute Cosmos rather than the jumbo version. What's your favorite wrestling pay-per-view you've watched? I know you're a WWE and AEW fan. It would be cool to see you talk wrestling more. I don't talk wrestling because if it's not Transformers or sometimes Tokusatsu, it dies a death in the algorithm. I've learned a long time ago, my audience does not really care about anything I produce outside of a Transformer, and don't tell me otherwise. Don't tell me you'll watch whatever I put up, because I know most of you don't. I know that for fact. I've seen the analytics. I know it's not true. My favorite one, I mean, it's a go-to, but like probably WrestleMania 30, because that's the whole Daniel Bryan story. Which I thought was, he put on 2 really good events to start the show and then end the show. You know, the whole culmination of the Yes Movement and all that. Very, very exciting. You know, show in general, and even like the undercard was really good too. Like that was just them like going all out. Anything else I can name? Like, I will be honest, like there's a lot of AEW pay-per-views I've really enjoyed. Unfortunately, like you'd have to put names in front of me for me to really remember which show is which. Kind of blurs together in my head a little bit too much. Would you rather have Volcanicus be its own separate team with Dinobots combined together and live alongside the main team, or they not exist at all? I would be okay with the Volcanicus if it is like an underling to Grimlock. You know, like this is like the strike team that they only bring out when everything else fails. That kind of thing, that's fine. I feel like making the standard 5 Dinobots into a combiner is forced. Now, I feel like that's crowbarred in quite a bit. As I look at my Dino King over there, made of like retooled Dinobots. But no, if they did like 5 completely new Dinobots and they decided this is going to be like a combiner, this is going to be the official Volcanicus, I'd be okay with that. You know, it's the identity of the main 5 Dinobots that concerns me with Volcanicus. I think they're cooler when they don't need to combine. Have you seen Transformers Master Force? So, I've explained this a few times. I never made it through Master Force. I found it never connected to me, and I found it really boring. And I don't know why, because I know a lot of people really like Master Force. It just didn't click for me. So, unfortunately, don't have an answer for you, because I never made it through more than maybe 7 episodes. Do you think a conversation or alliance between Mandroid and Angstrom Levy from Invincible would be interesting? Have not seen or read Invincible, so unfortunately I have no idea who that character is. When you're asking your questions, understand I'm always busy with something. And if I'm looking for outside entertainment in the brief amount of time I have to myself, I'm either spending it playing games or watching something with friends, or I am watching like a streamer or a YouTube channel. I watch almost no TV shows. I watch almost nothing. Like, flat out. So when you ask me anything that's referential or like, have you seen this or that? Like, honestly, like 99% of the time, the answer is going to be no, or I'm going to have nothing to say. And that's just a fair warning. Fair warning. What are some Hasbro collab figures based on a horror or horror adjacent property that you think would make a cool Transformer toy? I don't know what FD2, Final Destination 2 log truck. Okay, like Terminator, Alien, Five Nights at Freddy's, Resident Evil, Jeepers, etc. I mean, if you could figure out how to make a xenomorph into a robot, I would love an Alien. It would be some really weird retools of the Kingdom Beast Wars toys. Terminator, maybe. There's like the only Terminator vehicles you have like real that would like really work would be like the gunships in the future scenes, which aren't exactly iconic. This is again where unfortunately I'm a little out of my wheelhouse. I don't like horror. You know, that's another fault of mine here answering questions. I'm not a horror guy. So I don't have too many answers for that. Do you think a rail racer type combiner could work if they switched it to be different vehicles? 3 different types of cars would work. Maybe make something like Pile Up or Rush Hour. Are you really going to involve Jackie Chan in this? I mean, the rail racer style combiner works only because the bullet trains have so much length to work with. The only real switch you could do would be like making them into buses or something. And you could potentially do that. You could potentially get away with that. If you're just going to do 3 cars, what you're talking about is Road Caesar, who Takara and Hasbro both want to do, but it's a really super weird character to make. So, yeah, like you could make it work. Like you can make a 3-part combiner, you know. It's just trickier. And, you know, like you need the bulk to come from somewhere. Favorite Transformer character you've created? So the only ones that come to mind was the Beast Wars fanfic that I almost wrote. And I talked about that on the channel. It's one of the really early videos in the daily streak. One of the things, like, I was trying to come up with, like, mythical Beast Wars characters and set them. And, like, there's a lot of characters from there I really, really liked. I had Sandlynx, who was a Sphinx, and she was very pacifistic, but, you know, it's tended to, like, touch, it's tended to get to the heart of a lot of the enemy Predacons in other ways. I had this like really twisted take on Galvatron, who was not really the real Galvatron. He's like a clone Unicron created who believed he was Galvatron and kind of went mad over it. He was like a Chinese style serpentine dragon. See, I had Blockade, who's like a Catoblopos, who's like my Rhinox type. I had like a Hot Rod fanboy who called himself Hot Rod until he renamed himself Heat Streak and found his own identity. He was my Phoenix. I could go on about that. There's a lot of story to that that's like buried in my head, but like I thought I had a lot of really cool characters in that fiction. I just never really got to finish the story. Who's the bigger jerk, TF1 Sentinel Prime or Emperor Bellows? Bellows was manipulative and enslaving. And he thought, okay, here's the thing. Bellows thought he was the good guy because he came from like the witch hunter days in New England. So, like your Salem witch trial era. So when you enter a world that's entirely made up of witches, he thought he was the good guy by trying to figure out how to eliminate all of them. Sentinel Prime enslaved his entire race, mutilated all of them from birth, and enslaved them to an alien race, all for his own personal benefit. He knows he's not the good guy, and he does not care. So both of them, pretty horrible. I would call Sentinel Prime worse. Are there any toys that are objectively not good, but you can't help but like them for nostalgia or other reasons? So we kind of talked about that a little bit on Plastic Addict. Every now and then it'd be a toy that is like popularly known to be a bad toy, but you still kind of like it. I feel that way about a lot of the one-step changers, where they're inherently not great toys, but they're fun in their own context sometimes. Energon Wing Saber is an example where it's a brick, but it's a really pretty brick that I really, really like. I'm trying to think of like objectively bad toys, like things that are on plastic or were on Plastic Addict that I still really liked, all things considered. I'll be honest, I kind of feel like I was a little unfair to Energon Optimus Prime. Aesthetically, he's not great. I could use a little bit better balance. If they redid that toy as a modern figure, I think I would enjoy that design a lot more. I get the feeling that design would work for me a lot better if they ever redid him with better articulation, better balance. Ankle tilts in super mode would help him a lot. Yeah, I think back on that toy a lot and go like, you know what? I think I like that toy better than I gave it credit back then. Do you see a Transformers toy line trying to merge the current figure's play pattern with role-playing toys with support from the fiction? For example, the director device in Brave Dagarm, which commands the Braves, for unlocking gimmicks, transformations, or even some kind of trade game. So you could emulate the ideally more toyetic storyline from the show while playing with the toys. See, this is getting into like the way Japan media works, where like you can go and do radical things. Like you can do a Gundam Build Fighters where like, yeah, now everything is just Battle Angel Elita, where it's literally just like we're playing with Metabots all of a sudden. And there's something that's in my eye that will not get out. I probably look dumb rubbing it every 2 minutes. So ideally it could be fun. If you had some kind of like infrared gimmick that could like feasibly unlock a step of the transformation, like the head reveal, that would be neat. I mean, it would be fun. I will tell you right now, it's never going to happen because that's a whole lot of fancy stuff to cram into a toy line that Hasbro expects 6-year-olds to buy. But it could be fun if they worked a lot of it. That feels like something Takara would do, though. I don't see Hasbro ever doing it. Right now, both of them are doing like divergent toy lines, so anything goes at this point. See, should Cryotech be introduced into the Skybound universe? Considering we don't have any Beast Wars characters in the Skybound universe, I would say no for now. Cryotech's storyline is basically like Criminal Mastermind, and we've had plenty of just standard, like bog standard G1 style Transformers who kind of fit that bill. I don't think you need Cryotech specifically, so that would be mine. That would be my guess. Yeah, it's not a good fit. Not a good fit for Skybound right now. Have you watched Invincible? As we have stated, no, I have not. That's the question that should have come before the other question, but that's not how YouTube sorted them. Are there any characters or figures where you like the character and or robot mode, but you really don't like the alt mode? For example, I like G1 Omega Supreme, but hate his rocket-based alt mode and skipped the Titan. So that is not a bad example. I don't hate the rocket-based mode. I just don't like how little you really get to do with it, but patterning him as a Titan helps a little bit. I'm trying to think if there's any Transformer where it's like, man, I wish he transformed into something else. I think the one that comes into my brain the most is probably Safeguard from Animated. And I will admit that's not fair because those toys are trying to do a lot. And it's not their fault their alt modes aren't great. They're just generic little starfighters that aren't really transformed as much as they are just kind of doing some weird yoga pose. I wish that one had been done a little bit cleaner, like just make it more distinct that they are some kind of like jet fighter. But again, that's just coming from the part of like these were made to do a lot at the same time, and it's really not fair to the toy to do all of that to it. Have you ever watched Sailor Moon? If you have any favorite Sailor Senshi? So, I had the original growing up. I will admit my TikTok feed has a lot of clips from the OG dub. There's two OG dubs. There's the one that aired in syndication that only went up to like Sailor Moon S and didn't finish it. And then there is the one that went all the way through Sailor Moon Super S, and that was the Toonami run. And then they stopped at Sailor Stars because trans people scary, according to early 2000s Toonami. Modern dubbing grew some balls and actually dubbed Sailor Stars, and I want to watch that. I want to get around to actually watching the entirety of the new dub, but like, I'm never going to accept Usagi. I'm going to accept Serena. Like, that's always going to be what she is in my head. My favorites always kind of floated between, depending on the point in the story. I liked Mars when she cooled down and stopped being like so aggressive and adversarial, and I really liked Venus. I liked Venus a lot. Which wrestler had the best glow up going from WWE to AEW? A lot of wrestling questions this time. My immediate answer would be Swerve Strickland. So, for those with no context, in the WWE, he was just kind of part of, what was it called? Hit Row? Like, some kind of like record label inspired stable, which in a very Vince McMahon way was just a lot of their African American stars kind of lumped together in a stable that was very stereotypical. That's Vince McMahon. He's gone now, thank the gods. But like, Strickland there was just, he's just one in the crowd. He wasn't even like the lead of the group. He's just doing nothing. And when they put them on the main roster, they were interested in the faction for like 2 weeks, and then they just completely fell off. People started getting fired, and he was among them. Like, he just felt like an absolute nothing. And he is easily one of the most compelling people in AEW. Easily. And has participated in some of the sickest moments I've ever seen. Ever. So yeah, absolutely Swerve. Hey TJ, I didn't want anything they were serving for dinner, so I brought myself a thing of fries. Why is this still a thing? Why does anyone remember these things? He is referencing BotCon 2010. I've told the story on this stream. I've told it on this channel before. This is my buddy Joe. My buddy Joe, who calls himself a picky eater. We at the first ever Hall of Fame dinner for Transformers, because it used to be a whole dinner. When we did the first Hall of Fame, like the actual winners were there, and they gave acceptance speeches, and they accepted trophies on stage, you know, and like clips of the fictional characters, like montages for them played, and it was beautiful. And they used copyrighted music that you can't get away with now. And Grimlock's was set to Go Go Godzilla, and the Dinobot's victory one was set to The Touch, which is great. And then his like pre-win one was set to Welcome to the Jungle. It was fantastic. Stuff you didn't think they'd get away with, and it was hilarious. It was amazing. But it was presented like a serious award dinner. They wouldn't even let you wear, like, they wanted you to wear like full pants and preferably button-up shirt. They wanted to feel high class. So they catered it. And everyone got this like really nice like roast chicken breast and like puree potatoes. And they were really good because it's Disney. 2010 was at Disney, and it was Disney chefs making it. It was great. Joe stared at this and went like, I can't eat this. I can't eat this. Like, chicken and mashed potatoes, dude. This is like the most basic food. He goes, no, I'm a picky eater. Like, he gets up and he leaves, and he comes back 10 minutes with a styrofoam box of French fries. And like, you're a picky eater, but you will eat a random box of French fries out of a styrofoam box. I don't even know where you found it. And people talked about it after BotCon. People were talking about it on the forums. Like, you see that one weird guy with a box of fries? Yes, that's Joe. That's my friend. Oh my God, why? I answered my own question. Why does anyone still remember that? Why is that still a thing? Because every now and then someone brings it up and I have to tell the story again. If they did a combiner collaboration set with the Power Ranger Super Sentai, which Megazord would you like? Yes, the individual Zords have their own robot modes too. That's going to default to my favorite of all time, which is Bokenger. I still love me some Bokenger. Grant, now I was going to think about this. Like, the way those combine, it actually would not surprise me if they could actually get like full robot modes out of all the vehicles involved in that team. Because most of them just kind of stick on. You know, like, I'm looking at where's my ultimate Daiboken? Yeah, like the shovel. Yeah, like Boken shovel just kind of sticks on. Boken drill sticks on. Like, there's a little bit of transformation in Dumper and Formula, and like Gyro's just kind of stuck on. Like, you could absolutely get robot modes out of a lot of those. They might be simplified, but it could be done. They would never do Bokenger. They would never do Bokenger because Operation Overdrive went over like a wet fart. Like, no, like you wouldn't do it. They would try to do Daijujin. They would try to do the original Megazord. They wouldn't go past that, and it would hurt me. Do you think a Transformers Magical Girl series can work? I feel like you just want Kotobukiya's Bishoujo line of statues to just have their own anime. And you know what? That would be hysterical. I would be down for that. Maybe not as a series, but like a one-off weird thing, just as like a promotional thing for those. I would be down. Though I haven't heard word of any more, so I think those are done. Have you played It Takes Two or Split Fiction? Played both games with my girlfriend. We both enjoyed a lot. We're probably going to try A Way Out next. No, and I kind of want to. Like, me and my girlfriend are always kind of struggling for like game ideas for like what we could do together. It Takes Two's come to mind more than once. I don't know if it's a game she'd be into though. Split Fiction I have to look into. And I've seen A Way Out. That doesn't feel like casual date night with the girl type game. You do you though. It's not gonna be good for us, but you do you. Thanks to the possibility of Big Convoy getting a new figure, it's in the listings, it's happening, and my own love of Japanese Beast Wars, I want to ask, out of all the remaining Japanese Beast Wars characters, which do you think is the most likely to get a new toy? With how long I've watched you, TJ, you're probably going to say Kurata, but speaking personally, I really want to see Mach Kick, just for the sake of having a new horse bot. For Japanese Beast Wars, your most likely one to appear is Beast Wars 2 Galvatron, because he's the only leader left. Magmatron's got one. Obviously, Beast Wars Megatron and Primal have one. Beast Wars 2 has Lio Convoy. In fact, it's about to get the upgraded Lio Convoy soon. All the other leaders are accounted for, and Big Convoy is in our like future toy listings now. Beast Wars 2 Galvatron is still missing, and that's the one that I think is the most likely. Beyond that, I feel like it would come from the Neo cast, because a lot of the Beast Wars 2 is just recycled characters, recycled molds that didn't come out in Japan at first. And in those, I would really like to see Long Rack. I would love to see another attempt at Long Rack. But you're right. Like, Kurata, I really like. Could Amalgamus Prime be like 6-Shot or RID Megatron pre-tool? One would hope, Given Amalgamus, according to leak listings, is like a Voyager, I think. I don't see that actually happening. It's more likely he's going to be represented as a weaponizer. But I would have loved, if that was a pre-tool for an RID Megatron. Supposedly, people keep telling me that the 13 are not going to get any retools because Hasbro actually wants the toys of the 13 to be special and not get like endless amounts of repaints and retools. But it's Hasbro. I feel like they're going to reuse them eventually. See, is there a specific type of vehicle you're shocked hasn't been utilized in more toys? For me, it's the taxi. We talked about buses from time to time. If you look at any of my videos for like coming up with new alt modes for certain characters, some of the same ones keep coming up, like Stealth Bomber, Dome Racer. Those I feel like are underrepresented. Where's my limo? You're talking about like doing you're talking about doing like a combiner style like Rail Racer, but with different vehicles. Where's my limo? I need a limo, a bus, and a train to be like a Rail Racer style combiner. Would you like a new Transformers D&D companion from Hasbro, or is the old one still good? Transformers D&D campaign? Well, there's no D&D one for Transformers. The only one that came out was from a different publishing company, which is weird because, you know, it's Transformers. Like, do I have the book? No, I don't have the book out right now. Don't have the book. Yeah, but like, to my knowledge, like Wizards of the Coast didn't handle that, which is weird. I honestly have never played the old one, so I can't really speak on that one, unfortunately. I mean, I would love for them to give it a try. I would love for them to do something D&D based if you can figure out how to get transforming to work in D&D rules. Let's see, was the worst thing you reviewed for the channel? Like, Gaming Nerd, like that was like my original big series. It's still, and to this day, will always be Titanium Megatron, the original Titanium Megatron that supposedly is G.I. Joe, but G.I. Joe never used that design, so it's a lie. There's no positive about that figure. Go watch the review. It's a very old video at this point, but I still stand by that opinion. I have not seen worse than that yet. All right. Thank you. Okay, thank you for the compliment, first off. Thank you. Here's my question. With Generation Selects releasing being so few and far apart the past year or two, what figures would you put in the line to bolster it? I'd love to see an entire video for it if you can find the time. Here's a fun idea I had for a line. A 3-pack of animated Optimus, Bumblebee, and Prowl, all in their Elite Guard colors. That would be fun. You know, because Prowl had the G1 repaint in Japan we never got. I really like Bumblebee's Elite Guard colors. My idea for Generation Selects would probably be to do what they did with, like, Motormaster and just give me more BotCon characters. You know, things that are on the obscure side. Now, Hasbro has been very interesting when it comes to that. You know, so, like, Motormaster gets to be a retail release. Ferrac gets to be a Walmart exclusive. There's some things I feel like would be better done as Generation Selects, you know? Like, you know, obviously we've gotten, like, variants on Shattered Glass characters, too. But, yeah, like, I feel like there's a lot of, like, outside choices for BotCon toys that you could technically get away with. I feel like Selects comes down so much to just, like, obscure repaint and Diaclone. I would like for them to do something that once upon a time was more celebrated by the fandom. You know, just to kind of give us some tasty nostalgia. Thoughts on the toy bios on the back of the packaging? You mean the one sentence that they post these days? I miss the old story. I miss the old toy bios. Because it allowed Hasbro to tell a story themselves. It informed kids of who the character was right off the bat. I I miss that. I really miss when I could just pick up a toy, turn the back to it, and see who the character is. I feel like that's another reason why Transformers don't connect the way they used to. Is like a kid who just looks at a toy in the toy aisle and goes, "That looks cool." Has no way of knowing who the character is. And if the character sounds cool, they're more likely to buy it. But there's no way to do that anymore because every packaging has to have every language. That way Hasbro doesn't have to pay for regional packaging. Yeesh. You want the solution? Stickers. Just like put stickers on the box. Blank box, stickers for Mexican packaging. Stickers for Canadian. It has to be in English and French. Have you ever watched Murder Drones? And if so, who's your favorite character? I've only watched bits and pieces, so I don't have a favorite character I can tell you. It's on my list if I ever find the time. Like, that's the weird thing is like, if I do watch series these days, it's usually something that's usually like YouTube indie animation, which I guess some of these are on Amazon, so they're not indie anymore, but like your Hell of a Boss, your Has Been Hotel, your Amazing Digital Circus, Murder Drones is somewhere on that list. We got a couple new ones that are on the way. Like the creator of Owl House has one on the way. There's a trailer for one that the name escapes me right now, but everyone's like fired up over that one. Yeah, like we're in this like little renaissance for indie animation on YouTube, and I love it. If Hasbro went to Generation Selects to bring back Dawn of Futures Past using Cybertronian molds from the past 7 years, how would you react? I would absolutely love that. You know, Dawn of Futures Past, my absolute favorite theme that BotCon ever did. I would love to see it again. I would absolutely be down for that. I need to do that. I need to, like, spoiler alert, one of my Patreon requests that I'm actually excited to get to is to continue Dawn of Futures Past and come up with new ideas. I will be sticking to the limitations of the time, but I could also absolutely do a video reimagining that BotCon set using modern molds. Come to think of it, I could do all of the BotCon sets reimagined with modern molds. Someone write that down for me. I will forget. But that's a good idea. I want to do that now. In the Netflix show, we had both G1 and Beast Wars Megatron, and was confusing that they share a name. You think Beast Wars Megatron deserves a unique name, or how would you solve it next time they have to interact? So here's the thing. Megatron in Beast Wars did have an original name. He did have a name prior to taking the name Megatron, and that needs to be explored somehow. But the entire point in fiction for Megatron taking the name of G1 Megatron is to instill fear. It is not only because it is an intimidation tactic, it's his own ego, comparing himself to who was thought to be the greatest Decepticon leader of all time. It's Megatron, you know, it's part of who Beast Wars Megatron is. I think it's a perfect way of showing them as a character. So in that, I think it's fine. I don't think you rename him or give him a unique name because it takes away from the insight it gives into his character. Since the name Breast Force doesn't work in America, do you think the team can be rebranded as the Beast Force, swapping the Breastmaster gimmick out for beast modes? Leozak gets a Lion beast mode, Drillhorn gets a Rhino beast mode, etc. I think it takes away from the team if you change their alt modes for weird reasons like that. I mean, the Breast Force thing doesn't work in America. Yeah, you could call them the Armor Force. You could call them the Beast Force because they still have their animal companions. You know, there are easy ways to work around it. Hasbro opted for none of the good ways around it. But it's really just a name. It doesn't matter. Like, they know who the characters are. You know who the characters are. Even if it's weird in English language, Breast Force is the name of the team. That's just how it goes. How come whenever we get a Sentai member whose element is water, their weapon is never a trident, even though it would be obvious considering the tridents are associated with the ocean? You're associating tridents with the ocean mostly because of Greek mythology and things inspired by Greek mythology, you know, like the king in The Little Mermaid, or characters like the Submariner or Aquaman. They're all based in the Greek mythological depictions of, like the aquatic gods. Poseidon. Poseidon was known for a trident. That's not as common knowledge in Japanese fiction as it is in Western fiction. You know, Western fiction takes from Greek mythology all the time. You know, Japanese fiction, kind of rare, mostly because Japan has a lot of its own mythology. Understand, I'm going to assume you are American. I am going to assume Jason here is American. We absorb a lot of other cultures because we have no mythology of our own. America has no mythology because we are still a young country compared to Greece, you know, or Japan. You know, we have not been around nearly as long. So we need to pull mythology from somewhere. We picked Greece for some reason. So we know it well. A lot of our fiction revolves around it, but Japan has its own. So they don't really need to pull from anyone else. So it's very, very rare. You know, Kamen Rider every now and then. Well, like we've had things like, you know, Western style dragons in Kamen Rider. You know, we've had like, you know, chimeras, Cerberus, things like that. There are elements, brief, but they do exist. But it's not nearly as common in Japan as it is here. So yeah, Japan really doesn't have like the trident thing nearly as much. Is there any vehicles, real or fictional, that you'd like to see be a new Transformer or be the alt mode for an existing Transformer? We've been over this a lot, and I've said it in multiples here. You know, like I would love the novelty of, you know, a limo or a bus, because you never get those. I would love to see, you know, like a dome racer or like a stealth bomber, like a flying wing, you know, and I'd love to see a brand new Transformer that just adopts that, and that is their vehicle mode forever. You know, we stop loaning it out to like random characters like Megatron or whatever, who just happens to feel like being a stealth bomber this year. Yeah, but I feel like we go over this one a lot too. It's like, I feel like I've made entire videos about these things. What do you think would be a good Power Ranger crossover figure? Oh boy, we answer this a lot, don't we? The easiest thing in the world would have been to just turn the power of the Prime's Dinobots into Dinozord colors. And no, I don't expect you to retool, I don't expect you to retool Snarl into a Mastodon. It doesn't have to. I think when it comes to that one, people got way too hung up on like, oh, the Dinobots don't have a saber-toothed tiger. You don't need it. You don't need it to be one for one. You just need the spirit of it to be there. So you can make Snarl, you know, like the Yellow Ranger's mech in that combination. You know, you can make Sludge like the Black Ranger's, you know, addition to that Megazord. It doesn't have to be a one for one, because then you're losing the Dinobots. You know, and the idea is the Dinobots being the Megazord. If you're so obsessed with getting the Dynamos to be exact to what the original Power Rangers had, you've completely lost the plot. You know, at that point, you might as well just do the idea we had earlier in this video, which was to just make a set of Dinozords that have individual robot modes. There's no point to making them the Dinobots at that point. So, no. Stop getting so hung up on, oh, well, they, you know, there's only 3 of the same dinosaurs on those teams. They don't have to be exact one-to-one matches. And the ultimate example here is you don't really want it, because the Dinobots with Catilla makes no sense. even in context of being a Power Ranger crossover toy. No sense. You want it to be the 5 Dinobots, even if they're just imitating the original Dino Zords. And that's the way it would work the best. And that's the easy crossover they never did, and all they had to do is repaint it, give the combined mode a new head. I don't know why they never did it. What video game character would you love to join Super Smash? What would his final Smash be? There's so many, and also so few. Because, I mean, personal ones, would I love, like, Hollow Knight and Ori to join Smash? Yes. Will they? No. If I'm looking, like, not UG's trying to think, like, personal choices would be, like, you know, Mega Man X or like Kefka from Final Fantasy VI, ones that are very low on the possibility list. I mean, a Kefka Final Smash is easy. It's just, you know, his Final Smash is easy. It's just him turning into God Kefka and blasting the entire arena with Fallen Angel. Or is it Cruel Angel? I can't remember the name of the final move. I can't remember the name of his like signature one here. It's been a long night. It's been a long day. So, but beyond that, like, X would be the ultimate armor. That's apparent. Geno, Justice for Geno. How many years has people have been asking for Geno in Smash? Now we have the remake where he has an ideal suit for final smash, because you can do his like trio attack where he's just shooting people with shooting stars from, except he just does it solo. Your friendly scheduled conflicts guy again to ask, were you able to experience all of Gob's Tall Tale of Eos game? If so, favorite wild magic moment from it? Unfortunately, I couldn't, for the same reason of all of the, like, oh, I didn't watch that. Just, I don't have the time. So the reason I dropped Critical Role is I don't have time in the day anymore to listen to a 4-hour show. This is kind of how it goes. Now, I have a new setup. I'm always looking for things to listen to behind the scenes or in the background now. So now it's a lot more likely. Now I absolutely could, work it in somewhere. Why does Hasbro only reissue only G1 toys? Like, there are many toys from later years that people want, like, reveal the Shield lug nut. Every now and then, they do reissue some oddball toys here and there. Siege Prowl just got a second run out of absolutely nowhere. There's things like the Anniversary Prime releases where, where America finally got their hands on, Breakdown. Finally. And then if you want a Hades Megatron, we got that too. They did, every now and then they'll do weird reissues like that. And that's fine. We just got Power of the Prime's Optimus Prime last year as a Target exclusive. Random, but it was great to see it again because it's still a really good toy. So every now and then they do those reissues. Now, if you ask why they mostly stick to reissues of G1, because they sell. Because it's the casual collector who just like remembers the toy from their childhood, or like, oh, that's the original Optimus Prime, yoink. They're much easier to get sold, basically. When you look at like the Beast Wars reissues, the Beast Wars reissues did not go over well. Those usually ended up in clearance bins. If I go to Ollie's, which for those outside of North America is a liquidation chain that sells stuff super cheap that Walmart and Target don't want to deal with anymore, I can go there right now and get as many reissue Pterosaurs as I could ever want for $10 a pop. Original 1996 retail price. They just didn't go well. Like, that's basically what it boils down to. Yeah, there's a lot of popular toys they would make some money reissuing, but to do on a mass scale, to justify doing an entire production run on just one reissue, it would have to be a guaranteed surefire hit. And keep in mind, not all of them are available. A lot of those molds don't exist anymore, or a lot of them are lost. You know, we have stories about like, yeah, like the G1 Dinobot molds are probably being used as like ballasts in ships right now, because we just completely lost track of where they went. So there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons that I can't like go through and just like a quick answer thing as to why only G1 reissues exist. I need to keep a notepad because that's another video. It's like, why does Hasbro only reissue G1 toys? There's a good reason why. Do you think a Titan class multi-pack would work? You scared me at first because you made it sound like you wanted like multiple Titans in the same box, which would never work. Like a Titan's weight in Micromasters Deluxe Mixed Cycles. So basically just like a multi-pack that's like $200 worth of toys. It would have to be something very specific. It would have, and then offhand, I can't think of a single like aspect of Transformers where that would actually make sense. You know, I'm trying to think about it now. It's like, cause like, even if it's just like, oh, well, you're going to get like, you know, like you're going to get like 40 Micromasters. Who's gonna, like, I know there's people who would buy it, but like on a mass production scale, ultimately that's gonna die a death. Like, it's not gonna work. Honestly, no. I think the whole reason Titan class gets away with its price point is just the sheer mass of what you are buying. If you broke it up into a ton of little things, I don't think people would be able to see the price and the value of it nearly as much as they can like a big solid toy like a Scorponok or something. Would you like to see the evolution gimmick from Power of the Primes return with a fiction attached to it, so we can return to the early 2000s era of Optimus combining with his trailer, but instead of base Optimus, the cab would be Orion Pax? In story, I'm not sure that necessarily works unless you do an entire universe around why Optimus Prime only exists as a super mode. You know, that's where the weird part of that comes into play. It's like Orion Pax just being a guy, and then he gets to be Optimus Prime when he's combined. Meh. I just kind of want to return to super modes. Like, I would love for the evolution gimmick to return, but I don't need it to be Orion, literally Orion Pax. You know, I just like a variety of characters who could potentially use that and make a really good figure out of it, you know? Do you think there should be an animated anthology series that focuses on the original 13? If they're going to do this much with the 13, I think you need some kind of animated fiction behind them. Period. If you're going to make a big deal out of their toys, they need something to back that up. You know, and you know, just for the very least, just to capture the casual fans who otherwise wouldn't know who any of these characters are. Who's Prima Prime? That's a stupid name. Favorite toppings and condiments for a hamburger. I like a simple burger. Cheese and ketchup is usually my go-to. I will take, if it's a fast food burger, I'll take the lettuce and the tomato if I have to. I prefer shredded lettuce because I don't like that big hard stem in the middle of some of them, like Wendy's does that. The best burger I ever had was a blue cheeseburger at Red Robin. And for the life of me, I can't remember, I can't figure out how I ordered it or what was on it or what I had removed, because I tried getting it again and something about it was off and I did not like it nearly as much. So like, I'm still chasing that one. I'm still chasing like good burger, but my burger topping, pretty simple. I'm not complicated. I'm not one of those like, oh yeah, put French fries and an egg on it. No, just cheese, ketchup. I'm happy. Are you aware of the actor Ricardo Montalban? Yes, I vaguely know him. I do know that he was like Khan in Star Trek. Let's see. See, what do you think would have been a good role for him in any of the movies or a show? Your vote is Mind Wipe. I will admit, I'm not familiar enough with him to really give you like a really good answer. It would basically just be based off of his performance there. He might work as like potentially a Straxus or an Overlord, depending on how you write the character. I would definitely want him to be a big villain, not like a mind wipe or something, but like I really wanted him to be like, if I'm going to get that kind of name, he's going to have that kind of voice, I want him to be a villain. I want him to be the villain. How would you feel about the concept of Unicron making his own Dark 13 to counter the Primes? The fiction of the Primes is they are created to counter Unicron himself. So like we've seen where Unicron, it's rare in fictions where Unicron is capable of creating Transformers. And even if he does, they aren't independent. They're extensions of himself. Like Sideways in Armada is an extension of Unicron. He is not an individual person. The Minicons were autonomous, but they are also a little bit more simplified. They can't speak. It's outside of like Jolt. The idea of like a counter to the 13 could potentially be interesting. I think more interesting would have been like doing what Unicron does, which is corrupting and reformatting Transformers and creating a Dark 13 that way. In that sense, being more like Apocalypse from X-Men. Didn't expect mine to appear that early in the video. Well, we're a couple hours in now. Now you had to wait for it. About an hour and a half in. You had to wait for this one. It's just however YouTube sorts it. I have no control over it. I tell it to go by newest and hope that it's correct. I've seen so much arguments online about how toys should be enjoyed. It's like all childish and cheap equals bad, no fun, trash. And I think it's stupid to label things on all of those as those things only. I think that the price and intention should always be the end all be all of a toy, as everyone enjoys things differently. But I want to know, what do you think about this? So, for me, I used to be very big on like being anti-gimmick. I like classic style Transformers where they just put all the focus and attention on being a really good Transformer because the transformation is supposed to be the gimmick. I feel like when you cram the gimmick in on top of trying to cram the transformation in, you're going a little bit too far and you're starting to sacrifice things. But that said, when it is all about the gimmick, I've learned over the years to start appreciating that more. There's a lot of one-step changers I really like. Cyberverse Repugnus is really fun. I really like that toy. I own multiples of that toy. Some of the Earthspark stuff has been fun to mess with, like a lot of the Flip Changer stuff. And they even present like decent representations of the characters now. Like they've actually gotten good at some of these things. So for me, like I very much like mellowed out about that. I'm very much of like, if it's being honest about what it is, it's fine. If you buy it knowing that it's only going to do the one thing, but you really like the one thing, absolutely nothing wrong with that. I have bought numerous gimmick figures. I did whole videos about rescue bots that I rescued from local thrift shops. That kind of thing, so I've learned to appreciate the simple stuff. I've learned to appreciate the gimmicky stuff. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of like, if you like it, there's nothing wrong with you liking it. Period. Recently saw some vids of Agent Magnetar, and the model is very expressive and creative. I really like it. Thank you. Thank you very much. For those who haven't checked out Agent Magnetar, links in the description. What are you doing with your life? Why haven't you checked him out yet? I wanted Tokusatsu design for the character, but I knew that came with a few inherent flaws with like the fact that you need to be able to see the eyes and the mouth of a VTuber model to really get expressive and tell what they're doing. If I was just like standard Kamen Rider, couldn't tell where my eyes were, couldn't tell when my mouth was moving. So I came up with like this LED visor style, which lets me switch the eyes and you can see the character blinking and where he's looking. And the mouth is a voice visualizer, like an audio visualizer. So it keeps the solid helmet look, but it gets around those flaws and lets him be a lot more expressive. So thank you for noticing it. Like, I was actually really proud about that design element. Do I have a favorite Decepticon duo? Runabout Runamuck, Ransack and Crumble Zone, TFA Scrapper and Mixmaster. Scrapper and Mixmaster from Transformers Animated were a lot of fun. I actually had less fun with them when Dirt Boss became a thing. Probably Ransack and Crumble Zone. I equate them to Transformers' answer to Bulk and Skull. You know, so that's where I fell there. Is there any type of Transformer you don't like for whatever reason? Personally, for me, it's Beastformers. They're all practically transformed the same exact way. Unlike, say, Carbots are going to transform in vastly different ways. Normal UK, I think you are vastly underselling what Beastformers can do. I just to get my opinion in here a little bit, I think you are being exceptionally unfair. There's a lot of really creative ways. Take a look at like Optimus Primal in all of his toys across Rise of the Beasts, and every single toy finds some different way. You wouldn't think there'd be many ways of turning a gorilla into a humanoid robot, but every one of his toys finds some different way of twisting it up and doing it differently. So it's just about creativity. They don't all just like stand up on their beast legs and they're a robot now. But if there's any type of Transformer I don't like for whatever reason, I'm trying to avoid like aesthetic choices, you know, like I don't like movie aesthetic stuff anymore, so it kind of looks like that's not a factor. I'm trying to think if there is any, like, I don't think there's any like Transformer style that I just flat out hate, unless it's like something like a Build a Rule or something that's just like inherently bad the way that Hasbro presented it. Honestly, no. Honestly, no. Like, anything like that would get way too specific, you know? You know, like, I could say that I don't like insect Transformers, but even that, you know, because they leave all the bug legs around, but even then there's exceptions, you know? Like, Insecticon from Energon is fantastic. I love that little bug, and he doesn't have a lot of the flaws that some other insect Transformers have. But even, you know, like even if I go back to Beast Wars, that is also not always consistent. You know, the modern Waspinator toys have been really, really nice. So I don't really have an answer for that. I don't really have an answer for that. There's no like single type that makes me go, yeah, I'm gonna pass on these every time. Aside from RID 2001 Skybite movie, 07 Fracture / Crasher, to an extent RID 2001 Scourge and Yellow Splendid Convoy, are there any other redecos that made you completely forget the original use of the mold? We did a whole video about this, of repaints that completely overshadowed their original versions. And sometimes it's about deco choices, you know, like for me personally, Cannonball I think is way more memorable than Cybertron Red Alert. You know, when I think of like Red Alert from the Unicron trilogy, I think of the Armada design. When I think back to that mold, I think for Cybertron, I think Cannonball first. And I think the fact that Cannonball has had BotCon toys and he was one of the Star Raiders, so you have, you know, you have multiple Cannonballs being produced now, and then no Cybertron Red Alert. I think that's very telling. But yeah, they're definitely out there. They're absolutely out there. Like I said, did a whole video based on that, so I'd ask you to go check that one. Cannonball would be my quick answer. How many of Cybertron's repaints from the movie Allspark line do you have? I used to have most of them. I used to have all of them, because like in that era, that's when I was like very completionist, and I was very much about having the entire set. You know, like when they did those Walmart exclusives that Big Daddy was part of, I had all 7 of them. But over the years, I started just kind of telling myself, like, why am I buying every single one of these? Like, why am I so dedicated to like getting a complete set? I had to train my brain away from needing the whole set. Like, no, you don't. Just get the ones you like. Because you get getting lumped in with this like Thundercracker repainted into like '07 Dive Bomb and this weird yellow camo on a mold you don't really like all that much to begin with. So as of right now, I think the only one I still have is Big Daddy. I sold off a lot of the toys from that era. You are known for preferring Marvel over DC, so I'm curious who your favorite member of the original Avengers lineup from the Lee Kirby era: Iron Man, Captain America, Wasp, Hulk. Honestly, I'm going to be honest with you. My comic book knowledge does not go that far back. Like, if I'm looking at that list, probably Captain America, and that just kind of goes back to like I like the pure hero types. But it really depends. Like, if you're talking about from that era, I would say Captain America. A lot of these have told really good stories since then. I liked Planet Hulk. I liked Demon in a Bottle. So a lot of these told good stories beyond the original. I also like how you put Hank Pym instead of Ant-Man, as if like the only way to take him seriously is to call him Hank Pym. If Bitstream ever got a speaking role, should he only say yes or no as a reference to Bit from Tron? I think that's a stretch. I think that's a bit of a stretch. If you want to do a reference to Tron, surely you do someone as a laser cycle, right? I think that's a little bit. I think that goes a little bit far. I just like expand Bitstream as a character in general before coming up with like a weird. Also, like, yeah, like I prefer when characters are given like a much more expressive personality, and just being able to say yes or no, that's gonna make that difficult. Can I do a collection tour? The same answer I always give: no, because the state of my collection is not presentable. And since I just recently redid my entire filming setup, that's become more true than ever. Now, once it is all complete, then we can talk. I will tell you, as of this recording, I don't even have like a camcorder anymore that I can walk around and talk my collection with, because my camcorder that I used for reviews died, and I have yet to replace it because I can't find a replacement that satisfies everything I'm looking for. So that is still a back burner thing. I know it's a very big request a lot of people have had. I will do it when I feel like it is worth doing. Right now, not so much. Are you a fan of the Stargate franchise? Not especially. Like, the original movie was fun, but it didn't grip me enough. Never watched SG-1. So not really, no. My G1 Laserbeak fell off my shelf and the die-cast metal peg that holds one of the legs in place broke off. Is there any way to repair broken die-cast on a G1 Transformer? Do you have a welder? Yeah, I'm surprised that the die-cast is the part that broke. Yeah, unfortunately, I think you're just out of luck there. Fortunately, there's been a million G1 Laserbeak reissues. That's probably like the easiest cassette to replace. Even if you're going vintage, that's probably like the most produced cassette. But no, to my knowledge, no, there is no way of fixing die-cast on a G1 Transformer. Not in any way that wouldn't damage it. You're talking about metal to metal. You would need heat. Heat's going to destroy the plastic, going to destroy the paint, going to destroy the stickers. Yeah, unfortunately, you're just kind of out of luck on that one. Would Mega Man work as a tokusatsu show in the vein of Kamen Rider Super Sentai? So, if you did that, you would be approaching what they did with modern Astro Boy, where the whole, like, superhero aspect is a hidden thing. You could technically work. Like, Astro Boy is one of the inspirations for Mega Man, but you would have to tread carefully. So what you're doing is describing Mega Man Fully Charged, like the most recent Mega Man cartoon they did. And that show is abysmal. I hate that show. I hate that show with a endless fiery hatred. Yeah, no. Like you could potentially do it. You could potentially do it. It feels weird for the Mega Man character, but it's not impossible. Who do I think is faster, Blur or Sonic? Sonic, easily. Speed-wise, Blur is fast for a Transformer, but Sonic is literally breaking physics with his speed. You know, like Blur cannot circle the planet the way like Superman or the Flash can. Sonic can. In fact, if you read the current Sonic DC crossover books, I love the relationship between Flash and Sonic, where they're just constantly heckling each other. It's almost implied that Sonic might be faster than Flash. So yeah, I don't think fictionally you don't get faster than Sonic unless you're talking like someone who can freeze time and make speed irrelevant. Watching Devastator get pummeled by Bruticus in the G1 cartoons got me thinking, as more combiners are introduced over the course of the Great War, how does Devastator, often depicted as the oldest of the Great War era combiners, keep up with their newer and more advanced peers like Menazor, Bruticus, Superion, Defensor, Lio Kaiser, etc.? Truth is, I don't think he does. If you look at Devastator's depiction as the years went on, it just became more and more obvious he was getting outclassed. His last appearance that I can remember was Carnage in C minor, and now that is a horribly written episode and a terribly animated episode, but it is an episode where canonically a well-placed shot from Perceptor was enough to completely disassemble him. So as he is aged, his threat level has diminished immensely because everyone's just so familiar with him at this point, he just can't keep up anymore. If you want him to be able to keep up, then the Constructicons would probably have to reformat into stronger vehicle modes. They would have to be more modern construction vehicles. They'd have to be more heavily armored. Yeah, like if you need him to like keep upgrading, then the only option would be to like upgrade the Combaticons into better, stronger forms. You know, like maybe make them Cybertronian vehicles rather than sticking to their Earth designs. Things that could be potentially more powerful as a unit. See, if another entertainment company handles Transformer films and TV shows, which do you think is the best fit? For some reason, I see Disney being the best choice considering what's been going on with all other media companies. WB does not care about animation because that demon CEO currently running it. I'm not even sure Disney would be appropriate because, let's be honest, like they are fumbling really hard when it comes to the Marvel movies right now. There are franchises they haven't really shown much interest in. You know, like they didn't do anything with Power Rangers. You know, they were gonna air it as reruns and just make money off of toy sales. They didn't really do much with it when it went to TV, and I don't think they ever gave it the real attention it could have had. Honestly, I'm not really up on my production companies. I couldn't tell you offhand who would be a better partner for it. You know, I would almost say like yeah, you're saying like keep it away from Warner Brothers, so Cartoon Network not a good partner. Maybe Nickelodeon? Because then you're working with Viacom? I don't know, that one's tough. Unfortunately I don't have the industry knowledge to answer that one appropriately. See, with the recent reveal that Mary Jane is the newest Venom host in the comics, got me thinking about something. If the symbiotes for Venom, Carnage, and Toxin got bonded to a random Transformer character, who do you think would make for an interesting, fitting host bot? So, we are going to ignore the part where this is literally impossible because you need some kind of bio-organic connection for the symbiote to actually fuse to, which is why you've never seen a symbiote on a robotic body that it was entirely in control of. It needs something biological. It's in the name, symbiote. You know, it needs to have a mutual connection with another life form. So Transformers off the menu. But assuming they were, I don't want to include Toxin because I don't know enough about Toxin. I know he was originally a good guy, bonded to a cop if I remember right. So like Prowl would be interesting there, but I don't know the current character. Kind of Scream in the same vein. Last time I saw a Scream, they were actually trying to reform her in almost like almost felt like what if Carnage went heroic kind of way. But I don't know what that character's been up to lately. I do know they keep trying to bring Scream back to be a thing because people really like the design. For Venom, like Lethal Protector Venom, like part of me wants to say Grimlock, which would be terrifying. Carnage is harder because you don't have any like manic like serial killer type amongst Decepticons. I mean, no one that like springs to mind. It's like it's not a realm that Transformers really approaches often. Like you might get somewhere with like a Tarantulas type, but if we're sticking to like G1 cast like I just did for Venom, can't really think of anyone else. If I'm sticking to Beast Wars, then your Venom host would probably be Depth Charge. That one might actually be cooler. In that case, oh my god, why didn't I think of this? Yeah, you do have a serial killer type. It's Rampage. That would be it. It would be Depth Charge and Rampage. Why did I just make that connection now? 2 hours into a recording. Why did I come up with that now? Okay, have you ever seen any other mecha anime besides Transformers and Brave? I've seen a few. Like, I'm not entirely absent from Gundam. I saw Gundam Wing. Like, I remember it was super cool then. I think it's kind of boring now. I don't like geopolitical story in it now. It just drags it down. I just want to see the big robots fight, which is why I like G Gundam. If I'm thinking of others, Big O. Loved Big O until Season 2. Season 2 was not necessary. Season 2 was too weird. There's other ones. I saw Gunsword. I saw some of Gurren Lagann. Trying to think of others. There's absolutely others. I saw Magic Knight Rayearth. And I really loved Magic Knight Rayearth until the point where it became a mecha anime, and then I hated that. Because it felt like it took the entire point of the show away. Okay, it doesn't matter if these are like magical warrior girls anymore. Now they just drive giant robots. That's anticlimactic. I've seen a few others. Offhand, I can't remember which ones, but yeah, there's a few more under my belt than just Transformers and Brave. I wouldn't even consider Transformers a mecha anime, if we're being honest. If you had the opportunity to create a new Transformer character and give them a fruit alt mode, which fruit would you pick? Let's see, my favorite fruit is a banana. I don't see that working much as a Transformer. That's tricky. It's actually kind of tricky because now my brain's trying to come up with the entire character, which is going to take way too long. It's not fair to the people waiting to have their questions answered. If it's a Decepticon, I'm making it a Durian. I will tell you that. I will call it Stink Bomb. Does that fit the question? Does that work? If Hasbro did an updated figure of Energon Omega Supreme in Age of the Primes as a new Titan, would he be around the same height as Age of the Prime Battlestar Optimus Prime, or would he be bigger like a lot of the other Titan class figures beforehand? A figure like that, I would presume, would have to be... Here's the thing. It's hard to say if Star Optimus Prime, and I hate that that's the official name, Battlestar Optimus Prime, so much cooler. It's hard to say because I don't have that toy in hand, so I don't actually know exactly how big it is right now. I would presume an Energon Omega Supreme would have to be traditional Titan class size, but given the complexity of that toy, the transformation is not complex. What's complex is the fact that it's completely asymmetrical. It has to form two vehicles at the same time. That might get tricky. You'll note, remember, some of the reasons we got the Titans that we got in the last throes of those gigantic ones like Scorponok was because they started figuring out how to use the same hip, the same thigh piece on both sides and save on the molding costs because they just need to produce one mold that works for both legs. And there's a lot of that trickery in a lot of the modern Titans in order to make them affordable to produce. That doesn't work nearly as much with an asymmetrical Omega Supreme from Energon. I feel like if they did that now, you'd be looking at something that would be above the traditional 200 for a Titan. You'd be looking at like 250. 250 easy to get that Titan made. But I do think it would have to be that big. Like if he's only like a foot tall or so, I think that's not satisfying. Not for that character. Do you think Grimlock and Starscream can work as rivals, connections? Both rebellious loose cannons, wear crowns as leaders, leaders of sub-teams, created combiners, same tech spec total in G1. It is a lot of coincidences, isn't it? I feel like strategically they're a little bit too different to be rivals to each other, but you're onto something. You are onto something with that. In D&D, do you prefer to play a magic user or a non-magic user? So I tend to go back and forth. So I tend to go back and forth. So I played a druid, so a caster, and then I made a mistake. I was playing two games at once. One of them was barbarian, one of them was ranger. And so I was playing martial, but that was for like the same amount of time. And I think that was right. If I was in two games at once, I wouldn't want to juggle spell slots and magic lists for one character while dealing with a whole range of different abilities for another. I think two martial classes at once was like the only way I could make like two games at once work. Right now I'm playing a caster. I'm playing a wizard in scheduled conflicts. I am leaning toward rogue with a little bit of fighter blended in for a season 2 for my next character. But I've also had an artificer in mind for a while. So I'm still toying with ideas there. But no, I don't really have a preference. It's basically like, what did I play last time? Okay, let's switch it up. I'll go melee this time. I'll be a martial class. If punch, counter punch, and dealer, double dealer were to fight one-on-one, who would win? Yeah, I'm kind of agreeing with the comment section there. Just because they have a similar gimmick does not mean they are on the same power scale. Punch, counter punch is a spy. He is very low on the actual combat section of the score chart. Double dealer is made for combat. He's a weapons dealer. Like, he plays both sides as a warmonger. He is armed to the teeth. And in power-wise, scale-wise, way more powerful than punch, counter punch. So, unfortunately, no. Not a good match. Punch is getting clowned. Do you think we'll get an Energon Universe Shredhead toy anytime soon? Not anytime soon. First, we need to see if the character's popular. That's going to be a big thing. And then you're still about 2 years out from the point of toy production to actual creation. If you get a Shredhead within the next year, it's going to be because it's a crankcase retool. And I don't think anyone wants to see any more crankcase retools, with the exception of maybe a Cybertron Red Alert, since we have the head sculpt and the retools for that already. Beyond that, it's going to be a while for a Shredhead. Which Transformer villains do you think was pure evil that couldn't be redeemed? I think if written correctly, you can redeem just about any character. There are ones that are just too far, they're a little bit too far gone to imagine. I mean, obvious ones are like Unicron, but look, even then, like you may or may not have a Unicron redemption story in Masterpiece Black Lio Convoy. Like, that is supposedly a reborn Unicron who actually gained a friend and who might actually be out to do good in the universe, which is super weird to think about. Or he might just be crazy and think he's Unicron. We kind of don't know. And we're probably never going to find out because it was a one-off story thing. Pure evil cannot be redeemed. Things like Beast Wars Tarantulas come to mind because he's insane. Rampage for the same reason. Insanity really does kind of like take you off of the good guy list pretty quickly. More traditional, depending on the depiction, like your Overlords and Death Sauruses have been pretty bad, but like even those characters have had like depictions where they were more where they kind of made a face turn at the end of them, so maybe not even them. It really depends on the story you're writing. It depends on the story you're writing. If I'm going to go out of the box here, Sunstorm. Because again, insanity. Like, that's the key. Insanity kind of sends you over the tipping point and kind of makes it impossible for you to come back. It's like trying to paint the Joker as a hero. You can't do it. He's insane. How do you feel about getting G1 style generation figures of movie characters? I think we've had this question before, and I'm all on board for it. I like a lot of the characters in concept. It's the over-detailed shrapnel look they have that really detracts me from how they actually are as, you know, design-wise. If they were to do something like a G1 style Bone Crusher, like I already like Bone Crusher as a design. He's one of the rare exceptions. Give me something that's more along the lines of Generations, where he looks a lot more solid on top of that. Yeah, I'm absolutely down for that. Do you think the Transformers should dive deeper into the Cybertronian colony planets? Velocitron, Jungle Planet, forgot the name. Animatron. Animatron in America, and then I wanna think of it. I want to think of it on my own. What was it? You had Speedia, you had Gigalonia. What was it? I don't want help. I want to come up with this on my own. Oh, it's escaped me what the Jungle Planet was called. I think I already named it. It might be Animatros. Doesn't matter. I'm hard focusing on this now. I'll get to like the last question and I'll remember it. But you know what? Like, I wouldn't mind a story where we kind of expanded the universe and explored the other planets a little bit more. You know, especially like, yeah, because it gives us different takes and different like mindsets of different Transformers. What if the Transformer War came to a Transformer planet where they found peace eons ago? And they're just battling it out on this planet for no reason now. You know, you could have different situations like that. Like, yeah, like you could switch things up in the Transformer universe a lot if you make it more, about more than just Earth or Cybertron. And how many beaches could Beachcomber comb if Beachcomber could comb beaches? Not as much of a tongue twister as I usually get. My answer would be 1, because he'd just keep going up and down the coast and would technically just be doing one beach the whole time. They just go all the way down, just cover every single individual beach. Since Shatterglass Goldbug is based off the Throttlebot character, what would Shatterglass variants based off of the rest of the Throttlebots be like? I don't know the Throttlebots well enough to do that. See, like that kind of switch kind of only works for Bumblebee because it's the contrast between normal Bumblebee and Goldbug that creates the shattered glass idea. You know, the other mini-bots didn't turn into the throttle bots to make that trick work. I feel like if you're gonna have like a more unified, like if I'm gonna do that, if I'm gonna go that route, I think I would make the team a lot more unified, and I would give all of them the primary black color with their original color streaked through. So like Searchlight, the only one I can remember offhand. So like, if I remember right, that's the white one? Question mark? Yeah, like just like a black sports car with like white lines going through it, or like wide load. Like yeah, like pick up. You don't have a dump truck mold outside of a Constructicon to work with for this one, but like yeah, just like black, all black with orange hits. Yeah, yeah. I feel like that would be the way, because you know the others don't have the option that Bumblebee and Goldbug do. And thank you for the amazing content. You always cheer me up whenever I'm feeling down, and I'm deeply sorry if I ever offended you in some way. No, it's actually hard to offend me, to be honest. Like, you really have to do something kind of heinous. Now, it's trying to encourage me to be someone I don't want to be now. So now I'm trying to strive to be a better person since. Yeah, social media is kind of toxic. That's why I'm very like hands-offish when it comes to my social medias. I don't get into conversations there. I don't get into like current topics. I don't get into arguments or into the drama. And I avoid the drama. I'm there to show off a transformer from time to time, some weird idea I had or something I edited, you know, just to kind of just be weird and goofy. I'm not there to get into the drama stuff. So like, yeah, like for a lot of people, staying off social media is very healthy. I absolutely recommend that if you're getting too heated there. If Unicron, really? See, I'm getting suspicious of anyone who has these like random letters at the end, because that means it's an auto-generated name. So that kind of makes me want to go back and see if if this is the same one who asked this question already. If Unicron had his own version of the 13, who would it be? Now, see, you've kind of gone the same way I went, which is to use characters that are generated from Unicron, the Unicron way, which is to corrupt and reformat the existing ones. I would say Galvatron Cyclonus. I would put in Scourge, but I wouldn't do sweeps because that's going to diminish the 13. I'd just mostly make him like the way like Reflector originally was, like a multiple man situation where he could just create duplicates of himself as needed, you know, Insecticon style. For the rest, maybe not Nightbird, Battletrap, and Scourge. I would probably pull from his existing roster first. So you could put a Nemesis Prime in there as like a Dark Optimus clone. You could put in Armada Sideways. That's an obvious one to throw in. One I would really love. I would love to have one of the Blentrons from Beast Wars 2. Sorry, Beast Wars 2nd. I get corrected every time. Elaforca would be my choice there. Absolutely. He feels like the big enforcer of Unicron. But again, like more along the lines of like, the thing is, like, it's hard to come up with like the twist of the 13 because none of these characters really represent aspects of Transformers the way the 13 are designed to represent aspects of Transformers. So that would be the trick. How do you actually get them to fill that slot? Otherwise, it doesn't feel like a dark version of the 13. It just feels like 13 random Decepticons that Unicron has captured. That's the trick. That's the trick. So that's something to toss around. Since more than one person has asked, I might throw that in as a video idea. Really, it's just be like a notepad on my second screen, just going like Unicron's 13. Like I feel like there was, oh my god, there was an idea I had, like someone had a good idea for a video earlier and I completely dropped it. Oh yeah, redoing old Bacon sets with modern toys. Aha! Next mainline Predaking release prediction. So the last one was Power of the Primes. And that has been a hot minute. Predacons are really tricky to do. Like, you would see them be done the same way that a lot of the current ones are being done, but you'd have Voyagers instead of Deluxes, and you'd have a Commander Razor Claw who's more designed to be a full torso without any extra bits added in, or like minimal added bits. You know, like getting the framework to work on him would be really difficult. But doable, probably doable. I don't know what you'd throw in, but you could potentially do it. You had me hooked since December 2024. Love the daily content, part of my daily routine now. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around. I also know in the previous one I kind of mentioned, like, oh yes, the Armada comic did have a 4 Horsemen apocalypse thing. I do remember that now. With G.I. Joe Collaborative still going on, what bot is it still going on? I have not heard of anything. I've not heard of them doing any. Well, that's not true. It's not true. There's always like rumor and rumbling, but it's been a hot minute since Soundwave and Cup came out. So, what bots and vehicle mashup would you like to see? Specifically ones that haven't been used yet. I don't know G.I. Joe well enough for this. Like Optimus Prime is one of the G.I. Joe tanks, would probably be as close as I could ever think up. Yeah, I was never a G.I. Joe kid. The only time I had G.I. Joes as a kid was when they were Street Fighters. When they did the Street Fighter toys out of G.I. Joe molds, that I had. And I had exactly one vehicle. It was Bison's vehicle, and I can't for the life of me remember what it was. So I have no answer for this. I almost need to start this like with like a little intro sequence of like, here's the stuff I know nothing about. Yeah, see, the only ones I could think of were the ones that have already been upcoming, like the Vamp Hound and the Tank Optimus. That's it. The only ones I can really tell you. Why are the Technobots Computron your favorite G1 Autobot combiner? Asking as a fellow fan of the Tech Boys. So, it comes for a few reasons. Number one, I love the futuristic vehicle aesthetic, and I love that they have this really wide variety of vehicle modes that they are. They don't feel as repetitive as Stunticons or Aerial Bots, you know, and they feel a lot more united than even like Protectobots were. You know, because they share that aesthetic. But I also like that the color scheme sticks within the same colors. Like they have their own thing going on, but they're all close enough to each other to feel like a solid team. That makes Computron feel really solid. It also comes with the fact that two of the few toys that survived my childhood were Afterburner and Scattershot. Both have seen better days, but they still exist, and I still have them. They're still in my collection. So yeah, it's a lot of reasons. Like even as a kid, I had G1 Lightspeed, and I loved that toy. Got lost in a move, but I have it. I have it now. I have the entire team again. See, how would Megatron X work in Shattered Glass? I feel like almost in the same way. I feel like a Megatron X, like an alternate, stronger Megatron from another universe. In Shattered Glass, he would almost be like full Paragon. Most Shattered Glass Megatron depictions still have a bit of shade of gray to them. Like they are the big hero character, but you know, they have different goals or different ideals and that. Like I feel like Megatron X Shattered Glass would be just like pure paladin. You know, like just like the absolute paragon of virtue, justice, etc. You know, and like, you know, and like far more proactive and far more powerful. Like almost a Superman of the Transformer universe. That would probably be the direction. You know, in fact, I would go with that specifically. I would base his personality off of Superman. He needs to be very Boy Scout and so powerful that he's kind of chill and laid back. Because when he's that powerful, who does he have to be like afraid or on edge about? Do you think Depth Charge could work in a story where he isn't hyper focused on Rampage? There were episodes of Beast Wars where he wasn't hyper focused on Rampage and he worked. So absolutely. You know, he's known for his rivalry, but he doesn't have to be limited to that. You know, you can do basically similar to a lot of my questions. The answer really does come to it depends on how he's written. And you could absolutely write him to be a balanced character without his rival. That's totally doable. How much is too much for a figure in your eyes? I didn't have the funds for a Studio Series 86 Optimus at the time it was pre-order, and every online retailer sold out. I'm seeing people sell extra copies they bought for $140 to $200. Every reviewer I watch says he's really, really good. I'm considering biting the bullet. So 86 Optimus Prime is one of those toys where I don't think you have to worry about having to pay aftermarket. I'm fairly certain that toy is going to be released again down the line. So if you really want to go for that, go for it. We have the leaked rumor list where there is an upcoming leader class Optimus Prime on the way out that is supposedly just that mold without the trailer. So if you don't care about the trailer and a lot of the extra little bits, if you just want the Optimus Prime and just a standard gun, that's going to be a thing for just normal leader class price. So I would say wait for that if you don't care about the trailer. But even then, I feel like 86 Optimus is designed to be an evergreen toy that they can reissue and re-release the same way they do G1. You know, if they just need the definitive Optimus Prime on the shelf again, they can just do a special packaging, toy-based colors, etc., whatever. Or just straight up reruns and reissues the way they have Commander class toys in the past. I think you're okay. I think that toy will come around again. Do not pay. Honestly, like even 140, I think is still the limit of okay on that toy because it is a really, really impressive toy. But you have to really be in love with the extra parts and you have to see the value in the trailer in order to make 140 okay. Anything above that, wait for a second, wait for another run of the toy because they will do another run of it. Is it sacrilege if I'm disappointed by Legacy Armada Wheeljack, but not because of the absence of a Minicon? Many overlooked that Armada Wheeljack wasn't just simply a recolor of the G1 Lambos. He has a distinct design feature. Unfortunately, absent from the Legacy versions, like the gull wing doors. Shoulder shapes and colors aren't correct. The legs. So, the important thing to remember is that a lot of those toys, like a lot of like, even like what the Unicron trilogy did for a lot of toys is, it's an homage. It's not meant to be like the exact same version of the character. I do think it's ultimately a good Armada Wheeljack, but though you are right, there's a lot of differences in the designs and sculpts. But it's one of those like, it's not a super popular character that commands its own new mold. So, and it is close to the G1 Lambos in overall design. So I can understand why they just did it as a retool with a new head. And I guess new front chest as well. Could they have remolded it more? Yes. Is there a need to? Maybe not necessarily. But no, like, if that is a character you're really attached to, if it's a design you're really attached to, and you just feel like this was just off, number one, completely valid. Number two, welcome to the frickin' club. You're at the end of the line. Because guess what? There are hundreds of toys that Hasbro has done in the past where you are in the exact same boat as those. You know, for some people, like, there's just a lot. You know, like, I'm not a fan of the current Astro Train mold. I'm going to join the back of the line now as another one who is disappointed by a toy that should have been way better. Or should have been way more accurate. Or should have gotten this and that detail right. Should have been in these colors. It's not sacrilege. In fact, there's a lot more people than you think. It's just, yeah, like it's not. You're fine. You're fine. How does Hasbro renew so many obscure character trademarks every 4 years? So it doesn't always have to be every 4 years. In some cases, they're just safe. You know, like no one else is going to use the name Computron or Toxitron. In recent years, it's even debatable how many names they actually have trademarked right now, because if you notice, like, if I'm looking right now at Ultra Magnus's name on the box for the HasLab that's currently sitting on my bed, there's no trademark on it. Like it'll have a little like legal thing that says like names or trademark Hasbro, but they don't feel the need to like put the little symbol next to the name anymore. So some of these names may not be under trademark, because like it really doesn't make a difference whether someone else uses the name or not, so long as they're not doing something called Optimus Prime or Megatron. Hasbro may not necessarily care about someone else using the name Toxitron, you know, as long as they can still use it themselves. Also, they figured out so many ways around trademarks that like it doesn't matter if some of the names get taken for the obscure characters. They found out it doesn't matter. We're getting a brand new Iron Fist toy soon, and it's Fissatron. It's barely, similar to like the previous name. It doesn't matter, because fans know it's Iron Fist. Hasbro knows it's Iron Fist. It's just a name. I think they just don't get hung up on it as much as they used to. How well would Hound as a classic pretender have worked? His original bio alluded to him loving Earth so much he wanted to become human after all. It would play into that in a weird way. I'm not sure his design would necessarily work for a pretender, but like they get away with Jazz. Like there's no reason they couldn't have gotten away with Hound as well. You might have been able to play with that original bio a little bit more and said like he prefers being in his pretender form. But like, let's be honest, Hound's portrayal in the show is not even remotely close to how he was portrayed in the cartoon. Like, none of that came through at all. Are you looking forward to Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment coming out this winter? I am. Kinda. I will be honest, I have not finished Tears of the Kingdom yet. It's just one of those games where I just stopped playing, thinking like, I'll give this a break and play something else for a bit. It's been like 2 years. Haven't picked it up. So I don't know. Like I had the last Hyrule Warriors game. It didn't really capture me. The gameplay loop is not quite my thing. It's satisfying beating swaths of enemies at all at the same time. But like the zone defense type thing that they got going on that feels like very tower defense, that I don't like so much. That I don't really care about. And when we get down to like boss combat, it starts feeling like very like just clicky till it goes down type, where I'm almost like MMO style. I'm on the fence. We'll see on that one. As silly and quite dumb as this sounds, would catching a black hole, which is not a possible thing, be a great concept for a berserk form or even a final form for Agent Magnetar? Like I'm just imagining him with like the evil trigger. Change my question from what I originally typed due to one of your Magnetar answers in this Q&A. Nice. I like answering the Magnetar stuff. I love knowing that people are interested in this character and universe I'm developing. So obviously, like the whole idea behind Magnetar's power is he's catching shooting stars, so meteors. So like he would never try to catch a black hole. You can't. So without spoiling anything, because there are major spoilers, literally years down the line spoilers, I know what his final form is. I know what it's going to be. And I know how I'm going to use a black hole in the character concept. And that's all I'm going to say. Like, a lot of this has been accounted for. You have no idea. You have no idea how much thought I put into this. You really don't. I'm going to tell you, when you see years from now the things I do with the story of that character, understand It's in my head now. It was in my head a year ago. That is how much I have thought about this. That's how much I've developed already. How did you manage to get that magnet dude for the stars video? Was it hard? Need to know a little bit more about Earth culture. It's kind of like a cultural exchange thing. You know, like I basically teach him about like Earth video games, and then he has to just fill in for me for a day. It's not that hard, honestly. I don't have a cell phone number automatically deleted itself from my cell phone. Don't know how he managed that. Why did you release the Kiss Players video on Valentine's Day? Because what video would be more inappropriate to release that day? It's kind of the joke, man. It's kind of the joke. Do you own any Commodore Henshin belt or any that you might want to get? Ranger, you might be new here. I don't know if you can see it in this shot. Probably not. The complete selection altar ring from the Agito belt is behind me right now. I still have my Zengoku driver, my double driver, my O's driver, and I still have the O's driver being like the complete selection modification. Version 1, I'm still upset that version 2 is version 1.5 is a thing. But yeah, you're talking to someone like I used to get every belt. I used to get every at least main rider belt that came out. Now a lot of them I lost interest in, but I still have the Geats belt. That one I thought was really, really fun. 01. I loved Progrise keys. So yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot I still own. Still own my complete selection Deca driver, if I didn't mention that one. If there's any that I would want to get offhand, there's none I can really think of. I've gotten most of the, like, I used to own all of the main rider Heisei belts. All 20. I owned all 20 at the same time. To that end, someone gifted me the Fies belt way back when. I do still have my Fies belt. I think I still have my Kabuto belt as well. That's digging into some really old bins to get those. So yeah, I do own a lot of belts still. Offhand, the only one I would really think of wanting would be like the OG Stronger belt, or if they do like a modern strong, like a complete selection Stronger belt, that I would want. Let's see, do you think we'll get a 4-pack of the deluxe Insecticons in their original Beatrice colors? I don't know if that skirts some trademark thing, but that would be fun. Like, we are due to get Venom, the last of the deluxe Insecticons. So, hopefully, I would be down for that. Like, that would be fun. And just go ahead and make the Ladybug while you're at it. Like, just go ahead and make the Ladybug while you're at it. That might fall into like the it's kind of similar thing that they do for like Galactic Man, like they did the Radio Shack Shockwave colors. It might be similar to that, where like they can get away with it because like the toys or the company behind them aren't around anymore. But then I can't remember who did Beatrice offhand, or who owns it now, more specifically. If we ever get the Knight Rider semi-truck, what mold would they use? It was cool seeing the Magnetar host a video about the STARS program. I need to do a proper video about the STARS program. I kind of feel like I bait and switched you guys too badly there. So, maybe I need to do something else. For the Knight Rider semi-truck, the hard part with that one is they made Kit too big. Like, he's Voyager scale, but he's a standard car, and they did that so they could fit the electronics in. You know, it's one of those rare times they really care about scale. In that regard, there really isn't a good choice. Like, maybe a movie Optimus Prime, because, like, they just make him at leader class. They make big ones, they make big figures there. It'd be a hard pull. It'd be a hard pull. I don't think there's anyone individually that's specifically right. And above all, you're not going to get anyone that actually scales to Kit. That's the bad part about it. So I don't think you're ever going to get that. I don't know what mold would work. Motor Master, maybe. If you could figure out something different to do with all the gaps in his robot mode that doesn't require you to buy 4 new Stunticons. Let's see, what happens if Megatron accidentally cloned a nice version of himself called Liltron? Someone in the comments says this is a Dogman thing. I don't know what this is referencing. If Megatron accidentally cloned a nice version of himself, he'd shoot it. And that would be it. It would be over with. What would be a good vehicle mode for Soundwave and his minions? P.S. Nobody uses tape cassettes anymore, and iPhones does not work. We did this as a video. Like, I did mention this is one of the Transformers who needs a new alt mode. I decided that to work the communication and spy part in, he would be a news van, and your minions would be smaller vehicles like ATVs, dirt bikes, etc., that would be able to fit in the back of the minivan mode, akin to how Origins Wheeljack works. That was the best I could come up with. It's very hard to make a modern equivalent for Soundwave, but I think that gets everything in. What do you think of the Dino Fury Morpher? Trying to remember which series Dino Fury is. I've not done modern Power Rangers, so I honestly can't remember which one that is. I'm sorry, I don't do modern Power Rangers, and even if you say, oh, it's this Sentai, I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to know that either, because I have not followed Sentai in a long time. What do you think would be the best way to characterize Rung? The first Transformer before or after all the Primes, Primus's avatar, or Primus himself, or just a wise regular Cybertronian? I think you're going a little bit far when you say Primus himself, though in the IDW story that worked. I would rather him just be this kind of like mysterious, wise Cybertronian type. I think Rung works better, almost in a Joker or Wolverine way, where you don't know the origin story. Like, similar to how, like, I think Wolverine was diminished when you told the story of, like James Howlett. I think outing Rung as Primus actually takes away from him. I think he's more interesting when he stays mysterious. So, regular, wise Cybertronian, but there's these aspects about him that are weird, like the fact that that people can remember him but not his name offhand, like he's only a passing memory for everybody. And why is that? And then you just never explain it. That's more fascinating to me. Let people wander. Like animated Slipstream. What aspect of Starscream was she? You'll never know, because she wasn't designed to have an answer. That makes her more interesting. And as a result, we're still talking about her today. What's your least favorite Legends class small scale price point? Minicons, Core, Cyberverse, etc. In that realm, probably Core. We talked about this before during the Core cancellation video, where Core never felt like it had an identity, because it was always trying to do a little bit of everything. It was trying to be a sampler line or like a test market for Transformer eras that they don't do anymore. As I try to make sure nothing's come up on my messages. But like, yeah, like there's a few characters who make sense of the size, and they did those. There's a few like characters who worked in like that year's gimmick style. There's some that are just popular characters at small scale. There's some that are, just like, maybe we'll see if an Energon character will sell. Over and over again. And it just felt like if you just picked one thing and ran with it, this line would be really solid, but you didn't. You just didn't know what you wanted to do with it. It kept hopping around to different things. And because of that, it never felt like it had a point or a purpose. And it always felt like that $10 price point for that little figure never felt good. You know, if there was more of a unified idea behind it, I might be behind that price point a little bit more. But it's just like a random thing that they just dreamed up. Well, what happens if we do a hot rod with a sword for some reason? Because he had one in one of the worst Transformer comic book runs. Well, why not? Like, I don't know. Like it felt off. Core was disappointing if I look back on it now. Have you mentioned that you have mentioned that you are an Owl House fan? I was just curious if you've seen the new project the creator of the Owl House is working on. Yeah, I mentioned it before. Yes, Dana Terrace is working on the Knights of Guinevere, which looks very R-rated. And she is a body horror type person in real life. This is going to be way closer to her actual personality. I'm very excited to see what she produces when there is just nothing holding her back. I think it's going to be fantastic. Did you know Transformers 1 was boycotted in Latin America because Paramount insisted in using star talents, celebrities that dedicate themselves to the profession other than voice actors like TV actors, singers, influencers, etc., with SO charges for the Latin American Spanish dub of D16 and B127 instead of professional voice actors for the theatrical release? No. No, I did not. I will leave it at that. No, you have taught me something this day. Do you agree that it was dumb of Paramount to not release a standard Blu-ray DVD combo pack for Transformers 1? Considering the movie didn't do very well, I don't know. I really don't know. Because the movie did not do well, it would stand to reason that they would keep the physical release really limited, especially in an era where more and more people are dumping physical media in exchange for just streaming and stuff. Yeah, I don't really... It seems weird, but also, like, I understand why, if that makes any sense. Do you think Hasbro will try to do a HasLab for Optimus Supreme? So now we're going back to Energon Omega Supreme again. At this point, I do kind of feel like that might be the only way that character is possible to be made because of the limitations that large Titan class toys now have. We kind of explained that. If you want to pay $250 or upwards of $300 for your Energon Omega Supreme, that would be a thing. But here's the thing. If you do Optimus Supreme as a HasLab, that means you're also including the Energon Optimus Prime. That cuts that off from ever being a retail release, and that has a much better chance at retail. I think your better bet, because the Energon Optimus Prime is something in that obscure realm. It doesn't have the quality of appearance and like high prestige that Cybertron does, and it doesn't have that strong nostalgia that the Armada does. It's the middle child, kind of forgotten. Your best bet for an Energon Optimus Prime is to do it as a HasLab, but do it in the same way as Star Saber, and you also do a Wing Saber to go along with it, so you have like those two as a multi-pack. And that is like a $250 like HasLab, I think would absolutely work. You know, and then you work in like some upgrades to make them a little bit more interesting than they used to be. Articulation aside, you know, Optimus Prime's trailer actually does something now. You know, things like that. Or like we've adjusted the transformation so that, like, because Energon Optimus has a lot of blank space inside him and a bare bones transformation. So we've made the transformation more interesting and exciting, and we have worked a way to alter his proportions so he doesn't look like rotund in robot mode, but he can like transform and add that bulk so he looks correct in super mode. That would be my hope for that. But yeah, you could do more with doing that. And then, similar to how Deathsaurus comes after Victory Saber, that's when you do Omega Supreme from Energon. You give it breathing room. let's just say like 2026 HasLab is Energon Optimus Prime and Wing Saber. Well, then you take a year off. Your 2027 is, like a G1 style character. Maybe that's how they do Road Caesar. Maybe. So then, you let the anticipation build up. Because you're denying them, now they want it more, and now the desire is getting louder because, well, why aren't you doing Omega Supreme? Because you're intentionally building that up. You're intentionally building up to Omega Supreme and letting like the absence make the heart grow fonder type situation. So that's when you do Energon Omega Supreme. You wait a year and then you release it. Then it's the HasLab. And yeah, that's kind of the way. And since HasLabs take like a year and a half to make, that means like Energon is going to be like the Energon Optimus is going to be fresh in people's heads because they'll have gotten it just a few months before the next one is announced. So that's how you build that up. That's how it would work. Not all at once, but separated out in 2 different ways. Then you can make it work. And last up on the list, who is the better double agent? Armada Sideways, G1 Punch Counterpunch, or G1 Double Dealer? You don't have enough stories of G1 Double Dealer to really add him to the comparison. As far as we know, he was always just like riding the middle line really, really well. And almost I want to say like there's stories where he's not even covert about it. He's just an agent for hire, and everyone is aware of that. G1 Punch Counterpunch, I would say him. Because as far as we know, like it's very rare when stories involve him getting caught or found out. And then for Armada Sideways, honestly, he's a horrible double agent because he waited what? An episode to turn on the Autobots? And then like he's actually a triple agent because he's actually working for Unicron. So he had the Decepticons fooled more than he had the Autobots fooled. But I still don't think it makes him a very good double agent because he was very overt with his intentions. And that is going to do it. 2.5 hours is actually better. Like that's how long the current one ran. Like this one that we just talked about. Like this one I just read. Like the episode, you can see it. 2 hours 35. So very close considering there's like over 100 comments more. So I'm actually surprised by that. So there you go. Thank you very much for watching. Always, this is a very long video. I understand a lot of you just listen to it in the background as a podcast. That works too. But as always, if you want your question answered for the next one, you know how to do it by now. Leave it in the comment section below. Please do not ask me about Gundam, Megatron, Gun Megatron, or ask me to my opinion of your fanfic. And then there's the standard rules. Keep it TOS friendly. 1 punchy question per person. I noticed a duplication in this one, so don't do that. You know the rules will be pinned to the top. So, thank you everyone for watching. I will see you next time. Hello everyone, I am Astral Agent Magnetar, a Tokusatsu VTuber, and I am streaming 4 times a week over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons, and a special late night one on late Friday/early Saturday. So come watch, come hang out, and let's make an impact together.